Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have with me a very special guest, Courtney Davis. Courtney, how are you today?
Good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I was glad that I was able to get a hold of you recently, and we are able to make everything work. So that's really awesome. Like I said, we'll start with that first question that I sent you. What has your writing journey been like up until this point?
Well, I really started wanting to write in high school, or even before that, probably middle school. And then right after high school, I started kind of writing a little here and there. And then I took about a 9-year break from even trying.
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty typical.
Yeah. And then last year, about this time, I started writing again, and I got a bunch of stuff done. I wrote like 7 books in a year. Wow. Not all of them are great.
That's amazing.
Fun. And I had one come out in August, and I've got 2 coming out in the spring, well, February and April. So it's been a good journey. I'm not discouraged yet.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's like a really fast production rate, I have to say. That's really cool.
Yeah, it has been fast. I mean, it's with smaller publishers, but I'm okay with that. It's not for me, it's just about getting them out there and helping people read it more than anything at this point.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you gotta build your audience somewhere. That's what I was talking to my buddy, and we're trying to I have a few things we're trying to figure out, with releasing and things like that. And yeah, I think it's kind of crazy. I like how you're separating, you have these, different months going, because that really, to me, studying Lindsay Brokers and Joe Lalvo's podcast, that seems to be that type of rapid release, 2.5 to 3 months really seems to be, we're especially starting out where people really do really well, I feel like. So I think that's really smart.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Because I mean, my fear is that someone will like my first book and then not hear from me for a year.
Yeah.
And they'll forget. So if I can just keep in the front of their mind at this point, and then when I make a name for myself, it won't matter as much.
No, yeah. No, totally. That's with the podcast, this podcast too. I just am trying to get content, and I'm like, well, once we get season 1 done, we'll worry more about, audience and things like that. We're just trying to get a lot of authors on here. And yeah, I think, that's what Lindsay always says, backlog. And I feel like that's where I really find, different authors. Like Clayton Snyder is one of those where I read one of his books, and then I immediately went and bought another one. And, they were different universes and stuff, and even different genres, but I needed more of his writing and his type of style. So
yeah, that's kind of the way I go too. If I like an author's book, I will try everything that they've written, and yeah, even if it's not the same series. So
yeah. No, I think that's really smart. I think that'll work really well for you. And I really hope that, we can come back a year from now for your trying to do everybody a anniversary episode.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. I just think it'd be cool to be like, okay, Courtney, where are you at a year from now? And obviously we want people to come back in between, but we just really want to do at least if people get really busy and stuff, at least do a year, because it'll be really interesting, for us to really see different trends and things like that. And I think people, will find different people's experiences helpful. So yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I'm really curious. I was checking out, your books and stuff the last couple of weeks, once we started talking. So why urban fantasy? What really draws you to this genre as an author?
Well, part of it's because that's what I really like to read. So it makes it an easy thing for me to write. But yeah, I think life is more interesting if you think there's something magical out there.
I totally agree. I say it all the time to my students.
So it's just kind of like being able to, live in a fantasy world even more than writing a book about just regular real life, which also can be good. But that fantasy element just opens up so many doors, I feel like, with the storyline, and can make some kind of maybe more normal or mundane seeming things really exciting, because it's a creature doing it instead of a person or whatever. Yeah. So since I don't know that I would always stick with it. I did write recently, I did draft a more sci-fi story. So it was really a lot harder for me. I felt like just trying to get into that mind space of of it was different, but I we'll see if that goes anywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. I just think it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just discussing privately with a friend of mine who, she does like a lot of paranormal romance, and she's like, I really want to do more sci-fi. And her and I were just discussing where it's like, I feel like fantasy is really easy for me. Like, I'm a history teacher, so it's like, putting in the history elements, understanding civilizations, different societies, just those different type of things that you could really world build with, I think are really easy to me. Science is not something that's easy. And it's just interesting because I really love science fiction, but I tried writing it, and I if I go down, I feel like I get down rabbit holes with researching for science because it's so interesting, especially like interstellar things. Like I just got down a rabbit hole about like our different moons in our solar system that could actually have life on them, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was like really cool. And I don't think a lot of people realize like Titan, for instance, like, and there's like my brother and I like, we love historical mysteries, and we researched a lot of like the ancient alien stuff when the TV show first came out. And it is really interesting, I think, where there's so many ancient peoples that if you actually look at the type of aliens that they said that they encounter, these type of beings, a lot of them ended up being like aquatic. And it's just kind of interesting. Yeah. So it's actually really interesting if you look at the accounts and stuff. And if you look at the different art pieces and things, and it looks like, people are coming here with, like if they were, it just seems like that would make sense, because Titan and these other, moons and stuff have, a lot of water underneath them. So if it just seemed like, I always thought Mars was interesting because there's no, water there now, but yeah, it was really, really cool to go. But I'm like, I like kind of stuff like that. But then when it comes to interstellar travel or the tech or, and the actual science, I'm like, I'm not good at it.
Yeah, that's what I kind of had trouble with. I was like, well, if I'm setting the parameters, I got to kind of figure out what they are and what I want them to be, and then how everything kind of works within it. And I'm sure it's not like super techy of a story or in it, but still, I mean, you have to keep in mind some of those like travel things and how different things might work. And it's just, it was different, but it was fun to write. So I'm hoping that when I take a look at it again, because I've only done a first draft, so I haven't even looked at it again yet, but hopefully when I look at it again, I won't hate it.
Yeah. Well, my friend, which he told me, he goes, you should just write the sci-fi story you want. He goes, and then he actually, which I did not know this, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't think he wants people to know that he does this, but he actually hires an actual like science professor to go over, like his quantum mechanics and things like that, or, the engineering aspect. I guess the guy he got, to consult, like knows quite a bit of those things, aerospace engineering, stuff like that. And I guess he just has him, as like a content editor or whatever, and he just goes through and kind of helps him that way, which I was like, that's pretty cool. I said, maybe I'll just do that, just to you know what I mean, just because I do feel like science fiction's hard because there is that, you do have the hard sci-fi and then the lighter sci-fi, but I still feel like you have those tropes, and the tech is a trope, right, rather than elves and stuff. So yeah, it's just interesting that you mentioned that, because I've had a lot of conversations with people, with urban fantasy and fantasy that really want to dive in, but it's like, and I experienced that myself. It's like, where do you kind of start? Yeah, it really is. It is a totally different genre, right? Like, yeah.
They get mushed together a lot, but it's very different.
Yeah. That's why I do like Star Wars though, because I was listening to a couple of different people's podcasts, and they actually mentioned how, like they thought sci-fi, like it wasn't like as much sci-fi as like a epic fantasy with science fiction elements, and I was like, wow, that's like really true. Like, and I thought that was interesting and kind of changed my perception on science fiction, well, at least Star Wars a little bit, but yeah, it was interesting. For that third one, so I actually thought this was really interesting because I myself have had a lot of paranormal experiences. So I saw, is that part of your podcast, or a podcast that you're a part of, or were you a guest that's on your website?
I was a guest. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was a guest. And yeah, so I've had a couple paranormal experiences, and actually one that I didn't mention on that other podcast I did was in the house that I live in now. My we bought it from an older lady who had gone to live in a retirement home, and we're not sure if her husband died here or not, but we kind of think he did. And one time I got home with my sons and they were pretty young. They were probably like 5 and 2 at the time. And I told them to go like put something away in their room. And then they come back out and they like, I can't, there's a guy in there. I'm like, whoa. So there was nobody in the room. And, but it happened twice that they kind of said something like that. And so I kind of feel like it was the guy that probably died here. Nothing weird happened other than those 2 times that they kind of mentioned it, but it was very weird the way they said it. Like they weren't freaked out, like scared, but they were very serious about like, there's a person in my room. And so I feel like there was some energy going there.
Yeah. Oh,
but yeah. My own personal experiences I've had is when I was a kid it's a very vivid memory, and I was probably only 3 or 4 at the time, standing on a chair in my grandmother's kitchen. In this house that they lived in, everybody had really weird experiences there. So when I told my mom about this, like years later, she just totally got it. She's like, yeah, we're pretty sure that house was haunted.
Yeah.
But I was standing on a chair and their linoleum was like this checker pattern, like big, checker pattern. And I swear there were like little things coming up out of the floor. Like I was so scared, and I was just watching this, and it's such a vivid memory. And I was so young at the time. I don't remember anything that happened before or after that, but it was really creepy and it was just really interesting because when I brought it up to my mom as an adult, she was like, yeah, everybody got creepy feelings from that house, not necessarily experiencing something like I did, but just nobody felt comfortable there. It was just a weird old house.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, my kids, they always ask me, and it's like my parents like live in like a really old house in Michigan, and oh my gosh, it's gotta be like, I think when I was in college it was like 135 years old. And I remember very vividly, like I would go to work and I would go to school, I'd go to work in my first year in college, and I'd come home the same time in the spring, and it's a very old farmhouse, so you have to there's no AC, so you have to open up everything, and let the air through. And I was going through my normal routine, and we had a lot of crazy things happen, nothing bad, but just weird things happen over the years. So I saw a couple of like ghosts or spirits or whatever, but this one was crazy, and it's never happened to me since. It's like the only time. And I was going and doing the same thing, and I go by our guest room on the ground floor, and there's a guy in there with overalls, and like a jean long sleeve shirt and big bushy beard. So I go by, and I was just started doing martial arts at the time. So I immediately turned from doing the door, and I'm like, let's go time, and I turn, and I'm like, there's nobody there. And I'm like, there's no way. I turned right away, and I'm like, there's no way somebody, went behind me. But I ran through the house, checking real fast, went outside. The dogs are normally barking. They're just chill as can be. And I'm like, this is so weird. Well, I told my dad and stuff. He's like, yeah, whatever, and he's had some stuff. We had some stuff happen together. We got locked out one time for no reason when we first moved in. It was really strange. So we stayed outside for years. We thought it was my uncle, and he's finally no, he goes, I would never do that to you guys. He's like, you were 4 years old. Why would I, lock you out? So my dad is kind of skeptical. So the next week rolls by, and I'm going by the same room, and I'm a little wary now. Well, I go by right before that where our hallway is, and there's a picture of our, what looks like our house in black and white. And the guy's in the picture, and I'm freaking out. So I'm like, where did this picture come from? I had just been there earlier that day before school, and this picture wasn't up. So I'm thinking is this ghost moving in, So I called my dad. He goes, no, we went down last Sunday to the library and found that at the library, and they said we could have it. So I'm on the phone, and I'm like, Dad. He goes, what is your problem? I said, the guy I saw last week is in the rocking chair. And he goes, that's the guy that built our house. I'm like, wow. And he goes, that was the original bedroom. I was like, are you serious? And I've never seen him since then, but it was just it was really strange. I've never had anything bad, but
yeah.
It's just interesting when you said that. I was on your, for the podcast. I just thought, oh, that's really cool. So I actually have that one reserved tomorrow to listen to on the way to school. So I'm looking forward to hearing your experiences. So it's just funny because you normally don't hear a lot of people talk about that. and not even within the genre. And you're thinking like most people would, I would think I like urban fantasy writing it because I've had stuff happen and, you know, I don't know, maybe trying to make sense of it. But I feel like a lot of people, at least in my experience, I have met don't. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I think that, I don't think that a lot of people talk about it either. Like it might happen to them, but they'll brush it off. Like, I think that some people are just more afraid to even just admit that it happened.
Oh yeah. I've had a lot of skeptics over the years try to debunk and stuff. So it's interesting. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Well, that's going to be cool to listen to. So you guys, I will put that in the description too. It's going to be on Courtney's website. So I thought that was neat. So if you like paranormal, check it out. I will be on Monday tomorrow. So for that fourth question, what would you say was the hardest part about setting up your urban fantasy? I struggle with, you know, like I got the characters, but I think I struggle with the magic and how that kind of goes into the world building and how I want it to look. So I was curious at what you thought the hardest part was in setting up your urban fantasy.
Yeah, I think like setting up the parameters, probably kind of like what you're saying there, is it was probably the hardest part, deciding how magic and powerful they can be, because they can't be all powerful. They have to have some kind of weakness too to balance things out. I think that's kind of the hardest part. And then getting halfway through and deciding, oh, well, this character doesn't have enough of a weakness to, you know, not get through whatever. And so I feel like I ran across that before in the middle of my writing, where I have to stop and go back and kind of re-look at that, because the parameters that I've set, I try to really stick to them, because my fear is that a reader is going to read what I wrote and find something where, wait a minute, you know, over here, this character couldn't do this, and now all of a sudden they can, or something like that, that I'll just forget. I think that's probably the hardest part for me. The characters themselves are pretty, usually come to me really easy, and the storyline kind of builds itself. But I think setting up those parameters and to feel somewhat realistic too, in a weird way. I don't want it to be so out there that I want it to feel more like, hey, this could be going on in my backyard or my neighbor's house. And versus something that's just way out there.
No, I totally agree with both like main points you said there. Like, I think I always find it interesting to look at like how Patricia Briggs did it with Mercy Thompson, because she's in this really powerful world, right? With everybody's like, and she always says it like, I'm just this little coyote, but really it's like, okay, but you know, she uses that power in a unique way, like, you know, the Brandon Sanderson method, I guess you call it. And I like Kevin Hearns, where it's like with the Iron Druid and like Atticus, where it's like, you know, there's so much concrete in our world, and they usually get attacked where there's concrete, but they only have so much energy stored. I just think it's interesting to see. And even if you look at Jim Butcher, right, with Harry, it's like there's really like a finite of things he can do. Like, he's really powerful and he can blow everybody up, but it's against the White Council. So it's not even, you know, I guess his limitations. But yeah, it's interesting to see how people, you know, work around that to make limitations. I just always feel like I'm not that creative with it and need to work on it more. But yeah, it gets interesting after a while.
Yeah. Sometimes laws can like help with that. Like, if you still, there's this law that we can't break.
Oh, that's a good idea. I didn't even thought of that. That's a good idea.
I feel like I don't know. Sometimes I worry that I overuse the same thing, but I feel like I usually put that in there. Like, there's just got to be this like blanket law of nobody can know about us, so we have to keep it quiet. Kind of thing. So
I think that makes total sense though, right? Because I always wonder that, like, my buddy and I, like, we were talking one night about, well, I guess like, you know, this one book series, and we were just kind of like discussing, and we're like, could that be a thing? And we were talking about, oh, well, because like it was in Mercy Thompson, right, where like the fairies had came out, and then the vampires were worried that they couldn't come out, and you're like, wow, they really wouldn't be able to, you know, because people could probably do fairies and probably do werewolves, but there's no way you're going to get away with bringing yourselves out as vampires, because you know, like, how do you do that in a positive way, you know? And we were like, wow, that we were thinking like, could that be really the case? You know, like, it was like, it really made it like, it could be the thing that's happening in your backyard. You just don't know it. So I think you made a really good point there. Yeah, it's interesting. So for that fifth question, what do you think the hardest part is when it comes to writing two different series at the same time? Or having two different worlds, I guess, like
Yeah.
you've already, written in. Like I know a lot of people were saying like, and I struggle too. Like I have to write in one world and then kind of be done. And then, even genre wise, and then kind of move on. I feel like I blend them together too much and I forget things and I'm like two different people merged into one body. So do you struggle with that too? Or are you able to kind of keep those, worlds or series separate?
I feel like I'm pretty good at keeping things separate. I do take lots of notes as I'm writing so that I can kind of glance back. So I have a series that's coming out. It's the one that's starting in April. And I kind of wrote one for that series, and then I wrote a completely different book. And then I wrote another one for the series, and then wrote a completely different book. And it worked out okay for me because then when I came back to it, I felt a little more refreshed instead of feeling like I was I didn't want to like burn myself out on the world, I guess. So it kind of worked well for me to kind of bounce back and forth, I guess. I'm not very good at bouncing between works at the same time. Like I know some people talk about how they've got like 3 different stories they're writing at once. I can't do that. I sometimes like will write part of one and then get a good idea, stop it and just like completely write something else and then go back to it. But I can't bounce back and forth writing at the same time. But if I've completed a first draft, at least I can clear my head and start something new.
Yeah. I think it's crazy. Like I just know some people in the indie community who are like, yeah, I'm like doing this and this and this, and I'm just like, I can barely even fix this one character right now in my one fantasy book. I'm like, I don't, and I talked to my buddy about it because like I have like I feel like I have like a heist novel, and then I set up the trilogies far different with different tone and characters, and themes than I have like a Griffin Rider series that I'd love to do just for fun and action packed and stuff. But like I just feel like they're so different. It's kind of, I don't know how to get into the headspace and do them at the same time. Like it just astounds me that people can do that.
Yeah, I can't mix it too much. Yeah. But then I also do worry sometimes that I might accidentally, who knows, right? So maybe later on someone's going to read all of them and be like, well, you did
the same character.
Yeah. Or just names, right? I have a hard time sometimes with names, not like main character names, but side people, where I'll realize I've used that name as a side character before. I need to think of something else. So
yeah. No, I totally agree. I just thought it was interesting, when I was looking at your site and which different books you had written and stuff, and I was curious if you had done it at the same time or done one and then the other. I just still feel like I'd mixed up worlds. I feel like I need to kind of do one in one world and one series and then like quite a bit and then move on. I don't know if I could switch back. I found trouble doing that with urban fantasy. Like I was writing fantasy and then I was just like, nope, there's different laws here, and it just was like it just wasn't working. So I just decided just to write fantasy for a while and get a few done and then move on to urban fantasy later, because I can't even switch genres.
Well, everybody has to write in their own way. It's not something that works the same for everyone. It's such a unique kind of hobby or career, depending on where you're at, right?
Yeah. No, it's totally true. And like we just talked about with Krista earlier, where it's like, and Tilda Holt the other day too, where it's like, one thing that works for her was like she was outlining. So Tilda was like has this cool outlining where she uses different Postit notes and different colors for characters or chapters and things. And I find it hard right now to re-outline my second draft. And I thought maybe I'm a, visual, physical person. I thought maybe that will actually help me, like putting it somewhere and then seeing that it doesn't work here rather than just looking on Microsoft Word. I feel like, we look at emails and stuff so much that maybe it's just blending in, I guess. And I need to kind of pull it apart a little bit more, kind of report it, but.
Yeah, I took advice from someone with my editing recently to where I'm copying and pasting it into another document instead of deleting anything at all, because I'm always afraid to delete too much.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I really need to. And then if I delete it and it's gone, it's gone. I don't know why it never occurred to me just to copy it to a different document. But that's really worked for me well too, with going through my drafts. Sometimes like, what if I just take this whole thing out and do something different, and if it worked or not, and then I don't lose anything.
Yeah. That's why I bought Scrivener to try and learn how to do that. And then I feel like I just end up starting another Word document and just keeping the original there. And what's like, I have a couple characters where I'm like, this is not your book, bro. I'm like, you got to get out. Like, that's what my friend was joking. That's what he gave. I just thought it was so funny. He's like, yeah, maybe this isn't their book, bro. And he's like, what are you talking about? He goes, maybe they just need their own book. And I was like, I like the romance that they had started, and I like their different like backstories and stuff. But I was like, yeah, this really isn't the book for you. And I was like, I had good chapters with them, and interacting and things. I think if I change a little bit, it's like I have like, at least like 9 or 10 chapters with these two, and I'd have to change some of the story elements, but the relationship piece and things like that are there. But yeah, I was like, yeah, maybe I do need a different tool. So maybe I'll have to try that though. I like that. I don't know why that seems so simple. I don't know why I never thought of that.
Yeah. Sometimes the simplest things are the best. Like I like to write things down. Sometimes I never look at it again, but just writing it down helps me usually, or typing it into my phone if I can't write it down. I like that idea of Post-its because I love using Post-its. I use them all the time at work. But if I had enough space to where I was like, had my own room to write in and I could put it up on the wall, I could see myself being one of those like serial killer tracker things.
That's what we talked about. Yeah, like Charlie Day, right? Like with the board.
Yeah, I could do that if I had the space. That would be
Well, what was interesting about that was like what like Tilda was saying was like, and we actually came up with, the second interview that I had with her, which we'll be putting up for February, she wrote, we talked about it. But I can totally send you the link for like her video. She breaks it down, and sometimes she just does something different with it. Like she'll use a different color, if it's not working. We talked about, which I'm going to try, and doing like act 1 over here. And then she separates act 2 and act 3. And then she'll use the same Post-it note for a character or particular things that happen, theme or something like that. So, I mean, she uses quite a few different colors, but not like too many. It's like 4 or 5. And I thought, man, that's like a really, really good idea, because then you can like break down chapter, but still see everything in front of you. So we talked quite a bit about, I just think there's so many different ways that you could make that tool useful for you. And then that I can, to really make it work better for your brain, your writer's brain, I guess.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. I was like, and that's another easy one. I'm like, why have I never thought of using Post-it notes? Like, here I am learning Scrivener. No offense.
I haven't. I've seen like videos of that sort of those things that looks like too much. It feels like it'd be such a distraction to me on my screen. I just Word document. That's all I need.
Well, it's just funny because, like, I don't know. There were certain things about it that I did like, but it's like, I just like to write. I guess later on, I'll do the dictionary or something. I'll use it later on, I think, more with like a 3rd or 4th draft or a final draft, whatever. But right now, it's really distracting for me. I'm like trying to figure out how to use it or whatever. And I'm just like, I just want to write. So I've definitely just been using like Microsoft OneDrive. I feel like is just nice because I can just get onto it anywhere. And then I just save another copy every time I'm done. I just redo it on Google Drive, and then, I have it anywhere for both of them. Like, what's the chance that I'm going to get kicked out of both of them, or both of them crack? You know what I mean? They're like very different things. So yeah, it's interesting to me to go back now. So like, I actually was talking about it with Carissa earlier today, is like, I got like book in a month, which is a good one, but it's like, it's not good if you're just starting out. It's a lot better now. I think I'm going to go back and use the tool, because I feel like there's different graphic organizers and stuff that are great, but if you actually don't know where your story's going, it's like, I don't think it helps you get there. So I'm actually going over some of these old books I have and tools and things. So I'm really looking for what different people have to say. So I do like putting it into a different document, because even going from, Word to even like Google Docs or something, I think would be, I liked printing it out for editing. That to me was really helpful, just to, because I'm a teacher, so that was helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know why I never.
Yeah, I've never printed mine, but I've seen other people do that too. It would be kind of satisfying to hold the paper papers at that stage, but I
Yeah.
don't know. It feels like I'd be doing double the work, marking it here and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
changing. So
I kind of did it more for like just like draft one because I wanted to re-outline. So I wrote notes as I was going through. I was like, this is awful. I was like, I like this character. I like this scene, and I was like, oh, maybe change this. So it actually really, for me personally, like, helped me re-outline for draft two. And now like I have just so much better character development, like relationships, like the theme I was able to bring out more. I fixed a couple of chapters that were wrong for POV and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. My friend, he was like, so basically just did the same thing that I do online. I'm like, yep, yep. I felt like I was going through it, on Microsoft, and I was like highlighting different words and making notes, but it just didn't feel like I was getting anywhere, because it just keeps going and going. And I liked actually, I was sectioning it off by like chapters. So I would take 10 pages every day, which 10 pages, right, of 8x10 is like a lot more. So it's probably like 30 to 35, 40 pages a day. Like I was editing, on like actual book. So it helped me like kind of, I guess, like be more goal oriented for how many, chapters or pages or whatever. I just thought it just worked a little bit better for me. But I think, you said it best, right? Every tool works for different people differently.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very individual activity.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to change one question here because this actually brings up a good tangent. So like, has there been like one tool or, a way you've done something in particular? Like clearly there's got to be something that you're doing, to get, really good products out this quickly. So is there like one tool or strategy you use that you're just like, this is like my thing and it works really well for me?
I don't know. I feel like I don't do anything special. I don't plan before I write. I just sit down and start writing usually, and sometimes kind of plan out as I go. And I try to, like I said, I take notes as I go, on either like just character place notes or ideas for what might happen in the future of the book. And I really try to get on and write every day. I usually it's in the evening. I'm a teacher too, so I'm up early and off to school and then back home. And so nights and weekends, I'm trying to write around everything else. And but I feel good if I get a little bit done every day, and it just seems to work for me. I don't know. It's I really don't feel like I do anything that's special, but it works somehow.
Yeah. Well, what subject do you teach?
I teach kindergarten.
Oh, cool. Wow, you guys don't get paid enough, I tell you.
No.
Like,
especially this last week.
Yeah, like especially now, it's like I just think like, because like you look at my nephew alone, it's like he's about to be 4, so he's speech delayed because of the pandemic. Like they just couldn't go anywhere or do anything, and it was right at that vital time. And I see how it's affected just our 8th graders that were 6th graders when this thing started. I'm just like, what's going to happen when we have those kindergartners, like, and obviously we have a lot more time to help make up, but it's just like, I just feel like it's crazy. And I'm not good at kindergarten. Like, I have 8th grade, and then I was doing high school for a while. It's weird because it's like kindergarten, 6th and 7th grade are just not my thing. All the other grades, I'm like, I'm good. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, it is completely different. I've taught 4th, and I taught 1-2 combo class, and I've taught kindergarten. And kindergarten, it is different than anything else. And it's it just is. It's hard to describe. I mean, at the beginning of the year, it's like daycare.
Yeah.
I mean, the second half of the year, it's like 1st grade. It's crazy, but it's so fun because you see so much growth. That's one of my favorite things about it, is that you take these kids who don't know their ABCs, and then by the end of the year they're reading. So
it's super cool. It's such an important age. And I said to my friend, he goes, "You're so patient." I go, I said, "No, your wife is patient because she teaches kindergarten." I'm like, she has to deal with us all the time, like coming over and playing board games and stuff, or D&D or whatever. I'm like, no wonder she's always so organized and has everything, like the snacks and everything ready. I'm like, she's a kindergarten teacher. I'm like, I was like, and no wonder, we're like spending forever at your house. Where she's just like, okay, guys, like it's probably time to be done. Like, Well, that makes sense. I actually feel better now knowing that you're a kindergarten teacher. Like, no wonder you get so much, done. Like, I feel like you guys, no offense to anybody else who's not teaching kindergarten, but I feel like kindergarten and first grade and, really like young twos, even it's like anything in between the age, like you guys are just doing so much more in that time. I just
Yeah.
feel like yeah, I was like, man, she's really like writing really well. Like, what's her secret? So being a kindergarten teacher, I feel like
Yes.
you gotta be
Super
organized.
productive. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are really productive though. I just remember like how many things I did in a day, when I used to be like I had was in a kindergarten in first grade special ed classroom right before like the pandemic, everything, for like my second internship. And I was just like, man, we really do get a lot done in a day, and it's kind of crazy to think about, and
Yeah.
I feel like you got to be organized. You have to know exactly what you're doing. It's not like me where tomorrow I'm like, I guess we're going to review for our quiz and I got it done last week, but
Yeah.
it's a different beast, I think. But
Yeah.
that's really cool. I didn't know that. Welcome to the ranks.
Yeah. Thanks.
It's funny. It's just funny how many teachers are writers. Like, Melinda
Yeah.
Spencer, my friend Miles Hurt. Got to make sure I don't say his real name, say his pen name. There's like quite a few where I was like, oh, I had no idea, like we were surrounded. So it just kind of feels cool, to know other teachers that write in like the kind of same writing and stuff. So
yeah, I think it's got to be a benefit that we have summers off, because that gives me lots of time to write. But I feel like I was more productive during the school year with writing anyway.
And that's for me, as I'm trying to structure my days now for the summer, because this is the first summer I'm taking off, because I like did extra coaching and I've like subbed every day, like 2 or 3 like extra hours, because I'm like, I just want the time just to finish off a couple of drafts and things that were around 20,000 for me. Even if they're not good, I just want to kind of get them out there and then play with them in the fall and stuff. But I'm like, I feel like I have to be like every day mapped out, be writing every day before then, so I can just go right in the summer and be productive, because it is a different, like, no offense to anybody, but teaching's different. I feel like teaching, nursing, being a EMT or a doctor, police officer, it's like it is I just feel like it's a really different type of stress and different job, and you need obviously right to recharge more, I think, than other places. Not that everybody doesn't, but it's different, I feel like
it's very different. Yeah.
Other jobs you can come home, like Mallory Kuhn, like I don't know how she does it, like with her job, like she comes home and busts out and then writes different times, and I'm just like, oh, by the time I get home from school, I'm like just tired. I have to like hopefully like get at least 500 words out. I've been writing at school on my break, just to get 500 words done a day, or just to get something. But
I just started doing that, where I try to do it during my lunch break, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if I know I've only got like 30 minutes, I can sometimes get a lot written, because I know I have to be like on it. And
I do find it hard though, because like I'm sure you do too, where it's like there's just so many things that pop up, and I'm just like, it's been really hard to get the time lately, because I feel like so many things pop up where I'm doing something, I just want to get it done now, so I don't have to do it later, so I don't interrupt my writing time later. So it's kind of hard to go back and forth, I feel like. But yeah, it's interesting. So what is your favorite genre in terms of like reading?
Definitely urban fantasy, although I would say I started out as a horror reader as a kid.
Cool.
And I really liked I read like all the Goosebumps stories. And I liked Stephen King, although I haven't read a lot of his. I was probably more like watching the movies as a kid. But and then I moved into like reading romance novels when I was in like junior high and high school. But when I kind of discovered the mixture, which is urban fantasy, really is the horror and the love story, so it's perfect. I do read some other stuff too. I mean, like a good just like mystery story with kind of almost, if it's got like some humor in it, it'll get me. Or if it's got like a good enough like love interest kind of story, it'll get me. So I don't like anything sad. I do not. I don't like sad books or sad movies. I want to feel good when I'm reading. Or I do not want to be sad. So I don't do anything sad.
I'm right there with you. Like, no offense, but Perks of a Wallflower, or not Perks of not Paper Towns. What's the other one? Fault in Our Stars. I'm like, probably not. I'm sure it's a great book. I'm like, I'm probably not gonna be reading it because I don't want to feel. I want to feel at the end like, yeah, like same as you, is like I like the fantasy and sci-fi with like the heroes. Like I'm reading Jim Butcher's Deadbeat right now, and there's one line that Harry says where I'm just like, yes, like this is what I like. I like The Last Kingdom 2 and the TV show with Uhtred. Like I feel like he's a very similar type of character to like my personality, and especially with kids, like anytime there's a kid involved, he's like, you know, I'm going to protect this kid above all costs. And I'm like, I get that as a teacher. So I'm just like, I really like him. But yeah, I don't want to be sad at the end. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I write books with happy endings personally. Like, even if that's not in book one, it's like, you know, people, you know, grow a lot and stuff. But I feel like I just personally like the end of a trilogy to be, even if it's not great for everybody, I just want there to be a happy ending, I guess. Which I just realized. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot most of the time readers pick up a book, they know that they're gonna have a happy ending at the end or not. So you gotta, if you're building it up, it's gotta be there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. All right. Well, with that last question, do you have any news, updates, promos? So by the time this posts, it'll be February 8th. So obviously, you know, you have your new book.
Yeah, A Spider in the Garden, February 8th. I'm so excited. It's a really great story. Of course, I think so.
It sounded really cool. I like was checking it out yesterday. I'm like, oh, this is neat. I actually am really looking forward to pre-ordering it when I get my Kindle for Christmas. So yeah, it looks, the cover's really cool. The blurbs was great. I really liked reading it. You know, the different little blurbs and stuff you had on your website for it. It definitely was like, I was like, that is really an interesting idea. It wasn't like,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't like typical. And I don't like typical urban fantasy. I want something like unique, and that was really unique. So
yeah, I really try to be unique, although I never assume that I am, right? But yeah, she, you know, I started with this idea of a girl that turns into a spider. And I hate spiders, so I don't know where it came from. And then it just kind of went from there. I was like, well, what would be, you know, what would a spider be after, and what would their problems be? And this, like, the idea that the web is going to kind of catch his thoughts that go by. And and then it's kind of funny because when I was writing it and I got like almost all the way through, and then I went back and I added this other character in, and he's almost my favorite character in the book. But he's a side character, and he's a werewolf, and I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah.
without thinking about what would spoil it. But yeah, so it was a really fun book to write, and I'm so excited for it to come out because I feel like it's really good. But I mean, of course, I think that.
I mean, the blurb was great. Like, I'll obviously put, you know, your website in here for the description, so everybody in the audience just go check out, you know, Courtney's website, check out the blurb. The art I thought was fantastic. I just scrolled down and I was like, yup, the art's me. And then I went down and I was like, yup, check. I was just like, yup. So it was really cool.
I wish I had anything to do with the cover. I mean, besides saying I liked it, you know, they did a great job with it. I'm really happy.
It was just, yeah, I really liked, because, like, you know, obviously the cover catches your attention. That one definitely does. And I always do like a 3-part thing, you know, where it's like, you know, do I like the cover? Does the title, you know, interest me? And then the blurb. So you were 3 for 3 for that one. So I was like, check. So I'm anxious to get on that one as soon as, you know, it's out for February. So yeah, that was really cool. So anything else, you know, in the meantime?
Yeah. Well, after that, in April, I'll have a book coming out. It's called Life with Beasts, and it's a series that I'm writing about a woman. It's based in Seattle, Washington, and she's a magician. So she's born with like these magical powers, and she ends up being in charge of a portion of Seattle, kind of like keeping the order there, but she doesn't really want to, and she kind of gets into this like mystery that's going on. And book 2 is by book 2, she's a private investigator for
Oh,
the
cool.
paranormal, right? So supernatural private eye kind of thing. And yeah, so each book in the series will be kind of a continuation of the characters' stories. There's a lot of fun characters in there.
Cool.
There's a ghost in there that I just love. She's so funny. And yeah, and then a mystery kind of that goes to each book. So they all could kind of stand alone, but you definitely would want to probably read them in order to get the most out of it. And oh, sad story. I had 4 written and I lost one. The last one appeared from my computer. My computer crashed, and I need to learn my lesson and save everything onto an external hard drive, but it's okay. I'll write it again.
Yeah. Oh, that just breaks my heart. I actually would have been done with mine recently, but it's like in the process of my rough draft, I had like, I don't know, 17,000 words were gone, and I had to like redo it. I'm like, seriously. So it took me a while longer because I was just so bummed. It took me like 2.5 months to come back. So I definitely know the feeling. I hope that, you know, that doesn't happen again. That's why I'm like, my friend, my tech guy, my best friend, he's like, did you save it on OneDrive? Did you save it? You know, and I'm like, so we were so bummed. We tried everything to get it back.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I was on Shakespeare at the time and it just did not like it. So on my Mac, so I just had to stop using it, unfortunately. But
yeah, I got a new computer, and we'll hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. We'll cross our fingers there. Yeah, for sure. All right, Courtney. Well, we really want to thank you for, you know, coming on. I was really interested to find out more, you know, about, you know, you as a writer and your books. So I really look forward to, you know, to getting to read them. And I'd actually, you know, seen some of the other ones too, at our independent store. So that you're out and about, in my town in Ithaca, New York. So that was really cool. Yeah. And I was like, I didn't even realize it was you. I was like, oh, that's really cool. When I was looking on your website yesterday, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen those, you know, and it was just cool to see, you know, that you're out and about. So that was really neat. So
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And I'll look forward to doing this again in a year, if not sooner.
Yeah. Obviously, we always invite everybody back right away. So if you want to come back, you know, but definitely love to get you, you know, at the very least, whatever happens, you know, for that year. But definitely anytime you want to stop by, or, you know, like, oh, I have this really cool thing, or, you know, this tool I've been using, like whatever it is, as long as it's fantasy, sci-fi, horror, paranormal romance, whatever, as long as it's not fiction. Sorry, folks, or nonfiction. Come by anytime and tell us, and we'll be glad to have you. So
awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And thank you, our audience, for tuning in to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. You can find this video on YouTube for February She Wrote. We're going to be on Twitter, Facebook, audio's on Spotify, rssfeed.com. And of course, by this time, we'll actually have the new website up and running, and you can actually go and check out Courtney's profile on there. This episode will be on there, and you can actually find all of Courtney's socials and where to find her books and everything. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And Courtney, again, thank you so much. And I look forward to sending you the email for this podcast. And I look forward to talking to you on Twitter as well.
Yes.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.